Well, we will be speaking to Mkhosi Radebe, who is a legal expert on immigration, because remember, the concerns that have been raised by Dr Nandipha Magudumana relate to how they were deported. She argues that it was an abduction, also considering that there was no extradition hearing. But then the argument from the Home Affairs Department was that upon their arrest, they were told by the Tanzanian government that Dr Nandipha Magudumana, as well as Thabo Bester, who have been confirmed to be South African citizens, would have to go to the High Commissioner, the South African High Commissioner of the Embassy in Tanzania, and then be handed over to be deported back to South Africa after they were already they were declared to be unlawful in Tanzania, being unlawfully so in Tanzania. Let's quickly speak to our guest now who's joining us. Good morning and thank you so much for making time for us. Let's start off here. Does Dr Nandipha Magudumana have any case here, considering the argument that she's put forward that this was an abduction?
Good morning, Aldrin, and good morning to the viewers. May I first deal with the following disclaimer before I deal with your question. We are not privy to the Tanzanian authorities' version in this matter. We have not seen the records pertinent to the arrest of Dr. Nandipha or her abduction or anything that related to her deportation and or expulsion from Tanzania. To answer your question, I will answer your question in two ways. My respectful view is that the case of Dr. Nandipha is ill-conceived for two reasons. One is lack of urgency. Two will be issues pertinent to jurisdiction. You will remember, Aldrin, that Dr. Nandipha is challenging her apprehension, arrest, and or abduction, which happened in Tanzania. But what is surprising to all of us is that she has now approached a South African court to say, please entertain my urgent application about issues that happened in Tanzania. So my respectful view is that this case will not even pass the first hurdle, which is the hurdle of jurisdiction. The court will ask those pertinent questions and say, we believe we do not have any right to entertain your application because you yourself are saying it's pertinent to issues that happened in Tanzania. So the Tanzanian authorities are the rightful people for her to have launched this particular application.
Could it though be argued that because of in now speaking about Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's argument here, that because of the unlawful decision that was taken by the Tanzanian government, South Africa also acted unlawfully in fulfilling the requirements that the Tanzanian government had put before them?
Well, I can counter that and say the following. It will be remembered that the South African authorities are depending on the decision that was taken in Tanzania. In as far as Tanzania is concerned, Dr. Nandipha and Mr. Thabo Bester were declared prohibited immigrants and were liable for either deportation or expulsion in terms of the immigration laws of Tanzania. So there is no way South Africa can be taken to task and be accused as having done anything wrong. The idea is that the arrest happened in Tanzania, and then the South African authorities only took over on the 13th when Dr. Nandipha was then arrested in South Africa by South African authorities. There is no way the South African authorities can be faltered, in my view, without really speaking to them and without being privy, perhaps, to their version, which we have not seen here in this matter.
But Mr. Radebe, with the South African Police Service, though, have jurisdiction in Tanzania? Because here we're speaking about a South African police service with competency within the South African borders, and we're still waiting for the details of around who were part of that delegation that was being led by the Home Affairs Department, that if the South African Police Service was involved and if the South African Police Service were in Tanzania, isn't that unlawful?
It's a good question, Aldrin. Thank you for that question. You are correct to point out they are called South African Police Services for a reason, because their power is demarcated within the borders of the Republic. However, please look at it from the perspective of the Tanzanian authorities. The South African counterpart is saying the arrest in Tanzania was conducted by the Tanzanian authorities. And what happened, an arrangement happened between Tanzania and South Africa in as far as receiving Dr. Nandipha and Thabo Bester at the airport in Tanzania. So in as far as South African authorities' position is concerned about the arrest, is that the South African Police Services did not conduct any arrest in Tanzania because they wouldn't have any jurisdiction to do so in Tanzania, because Tanzania is a sovereign state. So the facts or the objective facts around what has happened, they are not clear because we are only privy to the papers and the allegations of Dr. Nandipha. We have not seen answering papers from the South African authorities, which would explain the presence of South African police in Tanzania. I am certain, in terms of the law, South African police services wouldn't have had any jurisdiction or authority to conduct an arrest in Tanzania.
Thank you so much for your time. That is immigration expert there, Mkhosi Radebe, speaking to us about that application that has been brought by Dr. Nandipha Magudumana before the High Court in the Free State to declare her detention unlawful.